Hey, this is Adam Post, creator of College of the Dead, the Zombie Apocalypse ongoing series, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books, man of 1,000 comics. And I thought this was a really cool article. It is a little bit dated because it's from 2015, but it's a timeless concept. The psychological reason we like watching superheroes fight. Um, she's talking about the dawn of punching, the reference to Batman and Superman, obviously, by Victoria McNally from MTV.com. Uh, so this was going back into the day where Iron Man and Hulk were fighting in Avengers: Age of Ultron. That was kind of interesting. But I like the treatment. So clashes between heroes aren't just a staple of summer blockbusters. They're also ridiculously common in the comic book world. Correct. If you don't agree, tell me so in the comments. But obviously, we all know it's pretty much true. Where you'd be hard pressed to find any two characters in both Marvel or DC universe who haven't gone up against each other at least once. But why does the superhero genre have so many of these fights? Honestly, why do you see Batman and Superman fighting? Why do you see these superheroes fighting each other? So they reached out to a clinical psychologist, this Dr. Robin Rosenberg, who specializes in explaining how superheroes relate to our own psyches. That is an unusual specialty I've never heard before. And I read this article once. I didn't notice that the first time. That's a little strange. All right, to her, the reason you might want to look her up. I'll put the link in the description. She sounds interesting. To her, the reason we love these kinds of struggles can be broken down in many different ways. Quote, for the audience of superhero stories, I think there's a segment that really likes the action, obviously. I think you need to have action, which means a fight. Dr. Rosenberg told MTV News over the phone, not in person. Okay, so you can't hold them to it. Maybe it wasn't even her. Who knows? It was over the phone. Somebody needs to be fighting, and ideally the fighting should serve the story, right? Because if you have fighting and the fighting is not part of moving the story forward, then it's a little bit odd to just throw action into a story from nowhere. So it's my opinion, she says, that it's kind of boring to watch superhero on villain fights all the time, especially with really uber superheroes like Superman and Thor, where the odds are so high they're going to win anyway. Well, it can depend on the writing, but yeah, if you have a villain versus a superhero, it tends to be that the villains do always lose. Occasionally they don't, but it tends to be that they always do. There's Hulk beating the hell out of Thor. That was kind of fun. It's all about trying to make it emotionally interesting, she adds. And so what can be more interesting than a conflict among heroes when you're familiar with the superheroes and their issues? That is just really fun, and when their issues come out in a fight. In particular, Dr. Rosenberg cited the Avengers as striking an interesting balance between all of the characters, most of whom had already been featured in their own movies. She goes on to say, she says a lot here, okay? Most of us root for the good guy or the good gal, and so when you see two of them against each other, and you know them and their shtick, it was just fun. Because you have all these alpha males, like me, or an alpha female, not like me, who are used to being the top dog, and then you put them together, and then that's true. That's what happens in real life. Like, yeah, there's fighting for position, and there are conflicts because when someone's dominant and they're calling the shots, and then somebody else comes along, there's going to be a conflict. Well, if you're both leaders, who's going to be the leader of a group? If you're identified as one group, there's a conflict. She noted that seeing superheroes go at one another satiates our desire for a particular kind of drama that we don't get to witness for ourselves, such as the relationships between corporate giants or political leaders. Well, I see that all the time. In that sense, I think it's like being a voyeur to equivalent real life situations that we often don't have the privilege of observing. How often do we get to see top dogs together kind of duking it out? All right, well, yes. This would be like, in a tribe of gorillas fighting with each other, and one is fighting to be top super ninja gorilla, and one always wins. By the way, look for Six Gun Gorilla now on Indiegogo. We all love to read what Scott Rudin says about Angelina Jolie. She says, referring to the recent Sony hacks, again, this was 4 or 5 years ago, as an example of our cultural obsession with high-level voyeurism. So I think the appeal is fascinating. She says it really is again with fascinating. It's fascinating to watch. So this is also true. We've been always talking about this as fans of comics. You talk about speculating which hero is more likely to win. Fanboys and fangirls often ask that question. It's true. Who would win in a fight versus a Punisher versus Batman? We actually did a book like that like 25 years ago, comparing the two. And I'm not going to tell you the end result of it because I don't remember. So looking at Batman versus Superman, who does she think is more likely to win? All right, well, okay. So she kind of goes on and on. But what I like is I like how she says here at the end, of course she says here at the end, Batman isn't afraid to go dirty, so to speak, although not as dirty as other superheroes versus Superman being a Boy Scout. So morally, it might be sort of interesting because as many comic book writers have said, a superhero story is only good as the sort of villain in it and what they bring out in the superhero. So that is a good point, is that, a superhero is only cool as the villain they're fighting and what abilities that it brings out of the superhero to be able to defeat that really powerful villain. Speaking of powerful villains and defeating people, take a look at my comic, College of the Dead.
Hey, I'm Adam Post, creator of the College of the Dead graphic novel comic book series. Take a look at the printed prototype. This is what the book's going to look like. And we've got the 100-page Ashcan book of College of the Dead. This shows how we made the book. It's got all the script and layouts. It's really, really educational, and it's really great behind-the-scenes stuff. And we have the art book, which is an 8.5 by 8.5 black and white book. It's all the art without any lettering. A really terrific book, too.
The way you can get College of the Dead is to go to collegeofthedead.com. It'll bring you right to the Indiegogo page where you can buy the book. You can check it out. You can see the first 12 pages of sequential art. I think you're going to love the story. I know you're going to like the comic. You will love it.
collegeofthedead.com.